Welcome to the Diary of an African Entrepreneur, where we explore the stories, the strategies, and the struggles behind building successful businesses in Africa. My name is Deji, Adebusoye. I'm a partner at Sayal Capital, and I'll be sharing lessons from the front lines of African businesses. Today, I'm joined by Isaac Nyangolo, the founder and the CEO of Zeraki. Zeraki is a Kenyan EdTech company redefining how schools, teachers, students, and parents interact through technology. Launched around 2015, Zeraki offers a suite of digital solutions such as Zeraki Analytics, Zeraki Learning, and Zeraki Touch to simplify administrative workflows, support data-driven decision making, and deliver high-quality learning content across undeserved schools. Under Isaac Nyangolo's leadership, Zeraki has scaled its platform to thousands of schools, brought digital tools into rural classrooms, and carved a path for educational inclusion through technology. It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Isaac.
Thank you, Deji. I'm delighted to be joining you today.
Yeah. Zeraki seems to me to be a mission behind what you're doing, and I really want to understand what inspired that mission to get this started in the first place. Why Zeraki?
The founding story for Zeraki is inspired by the job that I held before Zeraki. So I was a program manager in an education scholarship program that was run by Equity Group Foundation in Kenya, funded by the Mastercard Foundation, USAID, UKAID, amongst other institutions. Full ride scholarship. The hypothesis behind it was if you get economically disadvantaged students who, in spite of their economic disadvantage, have managed to do well in their primary school examinations, and then give them a full ride scholarship to join high school, then the thinking that I was thinking at the time was they had all these constraints. You've removed the key constraints, so the students should be able to do really well in high school. And it turns out that people fail or people fall behind for various reasons, and not just like financial. And within the first year of the program, that's the scholarship is still called Wings to Fly program in Kenya. Within the first year of the program, some students were struggling, falling behind in class in spite of the great academic progress that they had when they joined the program. And so the leadership was very deliberate in in seeking to design a mentorship program that was going to help the students who were falling behind. And the mentorship was going to be looked at into a psychosocial support and also academic support. So while I ended up designing the whole overall framework with my colleagues, covering both the psychosocial support and the academic support, I ended up playing a much deeper role in the academic support area. And the hypothesis at the time was if you bring them during the school holidays and get fantastic teachers to walk with them through their content, that's going to be really helpful to them. And so that's what we did in 2010, 2011, and part of 2012, until the government, concerned that students were actually not taking a real break, decided to outlaw the whole concept of supporting students' academic work during the holidays. And so we sat back and said, okay, the students still need our help. What are we going to do? And we ended up getting a Digitech that was NS Education in Kenya to help support the students who are falling behind. But I had some lingering doubt at the back of my mind just because of the way the NESA platform was designed. It was text-based. At the back of my mind, I'm saying, well, you can't learn biology on text. You need something that's more video-centric. And we experimented with a form of Khan Academy at the time. The concern in 2010, 2011 was, yes, you have these great video-based learning tools, but how do students use them in a low-resource settings? And I had a friend who was in San Francisco, was friends with some of the people like close to the core of Khan Academy. And he was able to share with me essentially the whole Khan Academy database at the time on a thumb drive, because we were trying to experiment with how to distribute content to low internet. I mean, places like a very weak internet. And so we ended up trying out this content with a few of the schools that we worked with at Equity Group Foundation. And while this ended up demonstrating to us the potential for video-based learning, it also exposed us to the limits of essentially using content that was built for a different curriculum and repackaging it or repurposing it for a different curriculum that we had. So the lesson that I drew from that was, yes, video-based tutoring will be great, but the content needs to be built for the specific market that you're going to have. And that whole concept, I mean, running from the problem to the potential solutions, ended up leading us to conceptualize how we could support these students who are falling behind, not just at Equity, but eventually when I left Equity, I was like, yeah, this is not just like an Equity problem. It's not a wings to fly problem. It's like a much broader problem context. When the World Bank did a service delivery indicator report in Kenya in 2010, they said the classroom teacher absenteeism rate was like 50%. The teacher competence rate was 33%. And what that meant is if you give a grade 5 English exam to a grade 5 English teacher, only 33% of them will score 90% in that. So situating this, potential intervention within the broader context, it was clear that if you can offer this standardized quality content across the board, then students will love it, teachers will love it. I mean, I'll come to that. You have to start with this naive feeling that everybody's waiting for your product in the market, but the market tells you otherwise. But at the time, we believe that the problem statement is fantastic. The product idea is also really great. This is something that we're going to work on. So that's like the long story of the one half of Zeraki. Then the slightly shorter story on the data side, what ended up inspiring us to start the data side of Zeraki, or to focus also on data when we started Zeraki, again draws from the same experience. When we started the Wings to Fly program, 166 students on scholarship in year one. By year three, you have 3,600 students spread out across 800 schools. It's a nightmare to collect the data for the students, analyze it, figure out the student who needs to be commended and the student who needs help. And more often than not, this process will take 2 to 3 months. So it's 3 months down the line that you realize that a student needs academic intervention. And having worked on the banking side of Equity Group and seeing the potential for data for decision making, I was like, we need something similar on the education side. Moreover, it doesn't look like it's rocket science. But when we went out to look for such a solution in our market, we couldn't find it. We needed to get a solution from India. I think it's called My Classboard. And I was like, no, we can do something. We can do something about this. So when I left Equity in 2014, with a short detour to a nonprofit called Evidence Action that again was working in the education space, the key idea was, can you build these solutions? They sound to have like really great potential. And broadly speaking, those have ended up being the two business lines that we've had from the very beginning. On the one side, content, on the other side, data. And now when you talk about like data, I guess when people think about school management systems, because strictly speaking, that's what we're building, people don't think of school management systems as a data platform. They think of it as an administrative tool. But our inspiration from the very beginning was, can we use all this information we're collecting to support decision making? And so our design, rather than focusing on just like the process flows, from the very beginning was focusing on how will the school principal use this to make decisions? How will the class teacher use this to make their decisions? How will the parent use this to make decisions? Ended up creating like a really unique system, whatever. Ended up seeding the kind of scale that we've ended up having with more than 7,700 schools, now in about 7 countries. We've had a little bit of consolidation in the last 2 years using our product. By far the largest company running a school management system in Africa, as in if you exclude, let's say, like government-run projects. So when you think about like the usage of data for decision making and just like playing out a scenario, let's say you're a parent who walks to a school and you want to talk to either the principal or the class teacher or the subject teacher about your child's performance. And typically, what the principal will do will be to give a call to the head of academics to ask them to print out the previous report cards for your son, your daughter, and then you would walk through it with a principal. And I guess just like imagining the friction that will cause. And because of that kind of friction, the conversation doesn't even take place. Or the conversation takes place, but it's based on impressions of the student's performance or based on the information that the parent brings into the conversation. But with Zeraki, you're now able to, okay, tell me what's your student's admission number or what's your student's name. And the principal, it could be the class teacher, it could be the subject teacher, is able to pull up this intuitive report that tracks the student's performance, let's say from the time they join the school, is able to relate the student's performance to the performance of the class, is able to situate that performance within a broader context. And the conversation is not, I mean, this conversation can replay not just with a parent, but can replay with a teacher, a subject teacher. So it could be, I have 4 biology classes. How would I know whether one class is performing well or performing poorly? How does it perform compared to the previous performance data and so on? These are conversations that were not enabled, not because the data was not existing. The data existed, but it was in a format that didn't allow it to be consumed. So I think this is essentially like a two-stage innovation that Zeraki brought into this. First, by moving this data and this analytical capability to the cloud, it now meant it could be available anywhere. But that said, given the slight device maturity in our markets, it's not just enough to get it to the cloud. It was critical to get it on mobile devices because we have our mobile devices everywhere.
So on the other hand of the platform, of for any data-driven platform, is the input factor, right? Which means that for you to have the data available, there needs to be people putting in those data in the system. Was this a major mindset shift for teachers and I assume is the teachers and administrative bodies of the schools that were doing that? Was this a big shift? How did you make them to go across that divide to begin to make this work?
Going back to 2017, when we thought of our first thoughts around building the mobile experience was shaped by the dominant narrative of that time, where enterprise systems were generally built for the computer, and then there was a stripped down experience that was built or designed for the mobile phone. That's the person who wasn't able to, for one reason or another, they're not able to use the computer, and you thinking of how to translate that, I mean, the whole user experience on the computer onto the phone. So fundamentally, you're not changing the UX. You're just like trying to see how you can fit that computer experience onto a smaller screen. And the dominant narrative was just cut out this, cut out that. And that's what we led with. We went to the schools with telling them, it's fine, you'll do your data entry on your computers, but if you need to, let's say, there's this proverbial story, I mean, actually happened. One of the teachers who inspired us to actually build out the full mobile experience, he says, I'm walking down the corridor. I meet a student who's misbehaving. I ask him, what's your name? He says, John. But because I have 1,600 students in the school, I don't even know that that's his name. So I don't even know if I'm going to dock them points. I can't follow up with them. So if it were possible to just like quickly pull up this data and to use that as the first sort of like requirement for this mobile platform, where all the data entry, all the data management happens on the computer, but the analytics, the availability, the information seeking is with you on the mobile phone. So you can do this every time, everywhere. And we go pitch it to the teacher who's called Frank, working around the schools in Western Kenya. And Frank's question is, but where is data entry? And we're like, wait, why would anyone want to enter data on their phone? That was our reaction. But given that they'd been one of our first customers, like, okay, we don't understand why anyone would want to enter data on the phone. And this was in 2016. I think it's now laughable because most I don't know. I think like maybe the Gen Zs, they can, Gen Alphas, they can type as fast on their phone as they can type on their laptops. But back then, it wasn't something I was thinking about. So we went, built out, designed that process, and we realized that's where the magic was. But if you actually think about the pain point around data entry, go back to that same school with a single computer sitting at the dean's office. At the end of the term, the 36 teachers or the 70 teachers in the school need to find time on this single computer. So there's like a 3-day queue at this computer. Enter the wrong grade or realize just after you stepped away that you entered the wrong mark for this particular student. Now you just need to move to the back of the queue and wait for the 30 something people ahead of you to go through the queue. And so we're going to tell the school, like, you see that process, that painful process that takes your teachers 36 hours to go through that pain. Now, from now onwards, you're only going to take 5 minutes and that will be it. Like, wait, what? Yeah, 5 minutes and that's it. Everything's going to be tabulated and so on. And that was like the key selling point. So you just go with like the flyer will have the phone on it, and the key selling point was you enter data. You enter your marks from your phone, and that was it. So data entry ended up, flipping around, focusing on like that big thing, which ended up being the key pain point, is what ended up like flipping it around for us, and eventually just like shaping the whole market dynamic.
Very interesting. Do parents also have access to these apps to monitor what their wards and their children are doing in school?
Parents have access to it, and the ones who use it religiously, I mean, love it to the extent we've had videos recorded of parents talking about like just how Zeraki has made life so incredible for them. So much you feel like, wait, no, we didn't. We promised we didn't pay these people to do this like incredible videos about like what Zeraki does to them. Because it's a level of engagement that does not exist. Remember, we talked about like that whole paper-based experience. So the only time you get to interact with your child's academic performance is at the end of the term, and it's that instant. But with Zeraki, you can monitor the child's performance across the term. Anytime you want to check it out, you can do that. But that said, right now, that's still an outlier. I would say just about 10% of our parents would log into the Zeraki profile for their students. And I would lay the blame on us. And I'll lay the blame on us and then give ourselves an excuse. It's about following the money. If you think about it, it's the school that pays for this solution, the parent doesn't pay for them. So we've unfortunately ended up focusing on those things that lead us to get more money. So long as the teachers are doing their data entry, we move on to the next school. We haven't done a lot of work around changing the behavior of parents, talking to them about how the dashboards work. I think sometimes we assume that because I'm comfortable with graphs, I'm able to interpret the data so easily, pick up the insight, the perspectives from it. We assume that everybody can do that. I've actually got to the point of concluding that if you show it to someone, they'll get it. But because we've not spent adequate time educating our parents on how this really changes their engagement, the engagement levels they have with their schools, with their children, we sort of like still failing in that. So we have the really happy parents, and then we have the parents for whom, you'll meet the parent and say, "Oh, you Zeraki, it's so amazing. Let me show you." And then they go to their phone and they show you the text message they received from Zeraki. I'm just like, no, that's not the Zeraki experience. Let me download the app for you. And then just like this, it's mind blowing for them. It's like, oh, you mean I can do this? Yeah. So it's something that's great, but because we don't charge the parents, we still end up defaulting so much into solving for the school's problem rather than the unique needs of the parents.
We've talked a lot about data. I want to look at content a bit. How is the the content part of the business? Is it also a stronghold? Do you see growth in it? And also, what extent of exposure does it have? So is it only to a particular type of curriculum that you develop it for? Or if you open it up, for example, can somebody sitting in Nigeria also access that information and benefit from it?
So on the content side, yes, it's one of the areas we really committed to. We've developed like the largest content library in Kenya. If you remember, like our initial hypothesis was that content needs to be context specific, which means that while other companies have tried building universal content that can be used across borders, our our path to innovation was to figure out how to build quality content affordably and quickly, so that if it works in Kenya and we're going to Uganda, we will develop Ugandan content. When we go to Rwanda, we'll build Rwandan content, but we figured out how to build it quickly and cheaply. And I would say like we've done that much better than anyone else. So in Kenya, we have 15 subject lesson by lesson guides covering the entire high school curriculum. And if it wasn't for challenges we're having around monetization, would already have done it for primary school, done it to the other 7 markets. So Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Ivory Coast, and so on, that we already have a presence in. When it comes to the administrative tools, the customer, the influencer, and the user is the same. So you just need to think about, how do I make the life of the teacher better? Because the teacher is the one who's going to use it. It is a quasi teacher, the principal, who's going to make the decision on whether to purchase the solutions. That's like your customer. And then eventually it is another teacher. It could be a teacher at the same institution, at the neighboring institution, who's going to influence the decision to make this purchase. So there's a lot of alignment around that. When it comes to digital learning, you have, the user is the student, the customer is the parent, the influencer is the teacher. So the parent might think this solution is great, but they still want to hear what the teacher thinks of this content, because they're not able to evaluate whether the chemistry content is good or not. But then if you build this solution for the teacher's benefit, the teacher themselves will not necessarily recommend this solution to the parent. You need to think about how that recommendation pathway flow ends up working. And again, if the teacher and the parent like the solution, but the student does not find it engaging, they still won't use it. So just like a complex mix, complex dynamic that we've been able to get the most downloaded, most widely used such digital platform in Kenya. But when you're thinking about our engagement metrics, when you're thinking about our monetization metrics, it's not succeeded. And if there's like anyone out there in EdTech who has figured out like how to make that triangle work better, we're really excited to work with them. It's just like saying, yes, we have the parents with us, we have the teachers with us, we have the students with us. We just don't know how to serve them with content in a way that is able to bring the three of them together.
Is it the government that is paying for the use of the data part? They are your main customers, they pay you, or do the schools pay?
It's a school that pays us, and that's ended up being constraint to growth, but also ended up building like a good moat for us. So each of the 7,700 schools that uses Zeraki has a contractual relationship with Zeraki, one school at a time. So that's slow, that's deliberate, but it also means that each of these schools have made their own independent decision that Zeraki solves for their needs, and they're willing and happy to pay for Zeraki to solve that need. So it's a slow acquisition, but on the other hand, it's also like quite defensible, because it's not a single relationship with, let's say, the Department of Education or the Ministry of Education. No, it is actually 7,700 individual relationships nurtured over time, and therefore makes it quite entrenched within that ecosystem. Now, in that case, yes, it's the schools that pay us. Now, that said, there are market dynamics in different countries. So let's say you go to Rwanda. We've considered going to Rwanda. You go to Tanzania, and the government involvement in the schools is a lot more in depth. The funding is a lot deeper. And that has ended up being a challenge for us, because we built the muscle to be able to pitch this solution directly to the school. but we haven't built the muscle to be able to pitch to the government. If the government is your customer, the product experience will be just different. The sales process will be just different, and we haven't designed for that yet. So let me say yet, because I think our goal is to service as many countries as possible, 20 plus countries in Africa, because the same data gaps, information gaps, insight gaps that we had when we were getting started in Kenya, it's something that we've seen across the countries. So when we went through this discovery phase, figuring out which markets do we expand to, in the space of 24 months, we expanded to 10 different markets. I mean, South Africa all the way to West Africa, Francophone, so Senegal, Ivory Coast, Guinea. I mean, we wouldn't have thought that the same problems that we had in Kenya would resonate in those markets. But so ultimately, if you want this then to work in each of those contexts, we will need to think about how to also have government as our customer, and also how to have multilateral institutions, because in a lot of countries, education is heavily funded either by UNICEF or World Bank or USAID or UKAID or something like that. I mean, what used to be USAID. So it's a muscle that we haven't developed, but it's something that it's in our pipeline, given the scale of impact that we would like to have.
Why are you not in Nigeria yet?
So thinking about Nigeria, I think it's, if you think about like Nigeria, South Africa, Kenya, they're the places where the tech markets are very well developed, very deeply developed. And that means that there's potential competitors in those spaces. So with our orientation to sort of like flank, we're just like, well, if it works in Guinea, we think it will work in Ivory Coast. If it can work in actually Ghana, we think it can work in Nigeria, but just not yet. So that's sort of like been more of our orientation. But again, thinking about the more mature markets, I mean, South Africa was one of the places that we tried having a foothold in. From a pure product experience, there's nothing like Zeraki. Nobody has thought about how to create a great user experience as we have. So we know that when we're ready for it, we will be able to do something in South Africa. We'll be able to do something in Nigeria. Right now, it's more about like consolidating the gains that we have in our core market, figuring out how to expand that term so that we're able to have enough resources to enable us to experiment more at the periphery. Or in this particular case, the periphery is not just referring to other products, but also other markets.
How have you funded the business growth?
So it's, I mean, for the first 7 years, it was friends, family, and yeah, no fools, but yeah, friends, family. And in 2022, we had a seed round that was led by Acumen. They had an education facility that was really, I mean, EdTech facility that was really fantastic because we got like an investor who was quite aligned with us. But again, it means like the kind of like trade-offs we needed to make as opposed to, let's say, purely VC-funded companies from the very beginning was that, I mean, our friends are not that rich. So we needed to, I mean, we ended up getting like a lot more dilution than other companies will have. That was okay with that. I mean, okay for us because our friends gave us a lot more room to experiment, to pivot from one idea to another and back. And yeah, and then when it came to the institutional funding, we're really fortunate to get like an investor who's not just like in it for the numbers, but they actually care about the underlying business. They care about like the underlying impact. And that also gives them enough context to know whether you're doing well or not. I think sometimes when you get started, you make commitments or promises that are based on rosy projections that are contrary to the underlying dynamics in a particular sector. And that's forgivable because we don't have a lot of data in our ecosystems. So it's easy to say that, okay, I will revolutionize agriculture. And then someone who's been in agriculture will say like, okay, yes, you want to kick out the middlemen, but do you know why the middlemen exist? There's a fundamental issue why they exist. And it's not just like something that's going to be wished away because you have this great ambition. So we've been really fortunate to have the kind of investor who understands the space and is invested in the space, and we're learning together with them in this space.
If I ask people working in Zeraki today, what kind of a leader would they say you are?
Maybe, oh yeah, I think I can give an answer. Yeah, I can try give an answer. We just hired a new talent manager, and granted, well, she's not been working with us for a long time. So I was like, okay, wait, why would you want to come and work with us? And she talked about transparency and candor. And I think that's something that we practice a lot. And so every month we have all hands on deck meeting at the company. And we typically use Slido for feedback, for questions. Eventually we hope that people are able to ask even the difficult questions without anonymity. But given the place where we were in our culture, we thought it's just like important to air out all the, if anyone has a question, however irreverent it might be, we deserve to know what the question is. And by presenting it, because of the kind of like candor we try to model, we're not going to say that, oh, that's insulting. We're not going to answer it. Sometimes like, yeah, it's insulting, or maybe just like it grates a little bit too much. You're like, okay, well, maybe the question should have been kinder, but I get the sense that maybe there's an underlying frustration, or there is this underlying thing that needs to be addressed. So what Prudence, our new manager, says is she spent like her time looking at the transcript. Listening through the transcript for the previous meetings, and she was struck with the kind of consideration with which we answer the questions, however difficult, however uncomfortable they are. And I hope that's something that not just Prudence is saying, but everybody else on the team is saying, because it means that if there is something uncomfortable, if there's something that's not working, we will surface it. And when it is surfaced, not just to me or to any other manager in the company, we will try our best to respond to it directly, not just like by being evasive. And it's something that just goes against our cultures. We tend to be very polite in our cultures, and tend to be, it's like high context cultures where you don't want to have confrontations. You'd rather go around the bush to say something than be very direct and upfront that this is not working. We don't want to have it here. And with that sort of like, and that we also seen like, yeah, it created like a very strong bond within the company, but a bond that is not based out of loyalty, but it's a bond that is based on a shared commitment to making a difference. Yeah.
What role or how important is having the right people around business? How critical is it for the success of the business?
It is critical, but I think like it's also a response that is context specific. Um, in certain markets or in certain circumstances, you just need a killer product. Like the product is so good that it doesn't matter whether there's, of course, for a product to be good, some people stumble into great products. Some people will need to work deliberately towards a great product. So let's just assume, yes, in some circumstances, you have a killer product, and that's enough to get the company over the hump and make it succeed. In many more cases, you need to have a great distribution. So yes, the product is good, but you have to be deliberate about like how you design your sales process, how you do your customer support, and so on, and how you think about like distribution. And I would say that the more enduring of those is talent. So, and this is like a reflection I was having with one of my managers yesterday. Just like saying, in my view, let's say the 0 to 2 years, uh, if if it's in a context where it's possible to succeed in 2 years, then the person who's great in product will win. If it's a context where it's a lot more complicated and you cannot succeed in 2 years, then I think the guy who focuses on distribution is going to win. And if it requires like a longer time horizon, is a person who manages their talent who's going to do it better. Because for the same budget, you're able to come up with better products, come up with a better distribution. And in a market like ours, where resourcing is very limited, it's the person who's able to squeeze more out of their existing team that's able to do a lot better than everybody else. I was lucky to work in such a company, Equity. Really admire what Equity Bank ended up doing in Kenya. Ended up being like the largest, second largest banking group in East Central Africa. And what Equity does that's so much better than everybody else is getting so much more out of the teams that they have. When I was talking about my equity experience, I focused on Wings to Fly, but I also ran this post-high school internship program called the Equity Leaders Program. And the concept was simple. Get high-performing students from high school, give them a pre-university internship at Equity Bank, and then, give them a pre-university internship at Equity Bank. Then they go back to, when the time comes, they go to university, they can come back for the holidays. When I ran the program in 2010, 2011, we would offer up to 1,100 internships in a year. The total staff count at Equity was 6,000 people. So literally, when you walk into an Equity branch, the likelihood that you're going to be served by an 18, 19, 20-year-old who's not yet done with university was pretty high. And these kids were really amazing, super motivated, super sharp, put in the hours, put in the effort. And if you think about it from a talent perspective, while the other banks were relying on university graduates to do front-end work, to do customer engagement, Equity was using 18 or 19-year-olds to do the same thing. It's much more affordable for them. Their motivation levels are through the roof. And the cost to, the cost to income ratio for Equity was always lowest in the banking industry. So their ability to figure out how to make the best use of talent was something that it's not well spoken. When people talk about like Equity, they talk about like the product innovation, they talk about their market innovation, they talk about their technology and so on, but nobody talks about their talent. I saw it firsthand. It's incredible. So I would say like if success requires more than 5 years, the person who manages their talent better is the one who's going to win, especially in markets like ours, which are resource constrained, but at the same time very complex.
Being and the reality is, from what I've heard you say, being an entrepreneur is hard. It's a hard work, let me put it that way, especially in the market where we operate. But somehow you still have to balance that lifestyle with your private life. So how have you managed that? How have you, as one impacted the other or the other impacted one, how have you been able to shuffle both your private life with the life of an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's funny. I think I'll appropriate was what one of my friends mentioned that he doesn't have a work-life balance. He has a work-work balance. The balance is from one career to another. But I'm also so in terms of like having a family, no, I don't have, and I think like very clear that uh, the putting up the startup has ended up just like taking away the time, the dedication, the commitment that I would need to set up a family. But that said, I'm part of a family. Like I have siblings, I have my parents. Sadly, I lost my dad recently, but in the last 2, 3 years, it's been such an incredible opportunity for me to spend a lot of time in a dedicated way with my mom, my dad, whether it's just like in those silent moments where he's not saying anything, as very good African fathers do. They're not going to tell you a lot, but if you sit with them long enough and you open your ears and try to listen, there's just like a lot that you'll be able to learn from them in the silence and what they say, in what they don't say, and so on. I think like the lesson for me was just like what you feed is what you end up getting. You need, if you don't dedicate that time with your parents, with your siblings, you're just not going to have like a beautiful or a meaningful relationship with them. And when I look back at, let's just like my overall well-being, I think I benefit a lot from having a functional family around me, which shields me from worries, from anxiety. And I think this might be surprising for, let's say, my brother, the one that that I mentioned briefly, the one who's worked in the insurance industry. When I think about like my brother, when I think about my parents, part of the reason why I had this comfort to work as an entrepreneur was at the back of my mind. I knew that if the worst came to the worst, there was a room in my brother's house. I didn't tell him. He doesn't know about it. To be surprised with him. There's a room in my brother's house that I can just like go crash in like for a year. I know he wouldn't feel bad about it. And again, taking care of like my parents, taking care of like my grandparents. Like I was so like one of the joys of having a job was I could send something to my grandparent, and just like that joy that my grandma would have. And it's a point in the entrepreneurship journey that the bills are so tight, like the finances are so tight that you're not able to be that generous and supporting to my grandma, to my even my parents. You want to give that treat to your parent, and the fact that your brother can do it, yes, it's not the same, but they're all contributing toward this. I think it's my own version of the story, how they say, yes, a lot of entrepreneurs in the US started their company in a garage. Dot, dot, dot. You need to have a house that's big enough to have a garage. In my
Like
case,
that.
yeah, in my
Yeah.
case, like my brother, my parents are really supportive of my entrepreneurship journey, just like by being that cushion that you can lean on. So even though he was not like as overt as putting in money into the company, yes, my brother actually put in money in the company, and that was just like so loving, so caring. My sister was a teacher, so she ended up using Zeraki in her school. So presumably being one of the silent supporters at the back, like, yes, this is a great solution, you need to have it. No, I mean, nothing replaces that. And I would say that a lot of the well-being, like mental wellness that I have, derives from the fact that I have this really supportive community around me, and just knowing that there's someone watching my back. If anything were to blow up, I'm not alone. There's just like this great community, and just like then being aware that this is not accidentally built up. This is something that you have to deliberately nurture. So that's something that I'm actually trying to be more thoughtful about, especially now that my mom isn't around, my siblings are around, just like trying to be more deliberate about saying, yes, it's so busy. I'm going to get this deliberate time. And this is just like for family, but also for friends. And I'm also very involved in my church community. But it just like been so amazing to be able to have all of that community around me.
I always love when I see, families play a significant role in helping one to shaping ourselves out, in whatever endeavor one finds himself or herself. So I really, really love, the way you've positioned that and the role and the impact that your friends and your family, most especially, have played, in what you are today and who you are becoming as well. Thank you for sharing that to us. And I know recently, like you mentioned also in passing, you lost your dad, and I know that would have been a major impact on you as a person. And things like that happen in the lives of many entrepreneurs. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be something else that happens. How would you advise somebody who is trying to build something and faces that kind of a headwind in their lives? What would you advise them to do in those very trying circumstances to be able to keep their heads up and keep doing what they are doing?
Like, I feel like it starts with what you can do now. Let's say, I'm just like praying that it's not someone who's going through loss who's listening to this, because I'm still learning how to process that loss and how to um, live with it, dwell in it. I mean, just like make sure like it doesn't overwhelm or crush me. I would say that maybe it starts from when they're there. I think regret is one of those things that inspires us a lot of as entrepreneurs. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, uh, clearly, my story is similarly where 10 years, 11 years ago, I was like, I'm feeling so miserable in employment. I know if I'm feeling this miserable right now and I don't go out and try it out, 10 years from now, I'll regret this so much. So you know what? Let me just go try it out. Even if I fail and I go back into employment, I'll feel like, well, at least I have no regret about it. I think because of the beauty that we get out, I mean, the kind of beauty that I've been able to get from having such a supportive family around me, I would say it does help that I had a meaningful relationship with my dad when he was there. I devoted, or that spent significant devoted time with him. And so his memory is a strength to me. And there is little regret in that. Oh, I missed this, I missed that. The truth is, there are trade-offs. I mean, there are days that you needed to spend time or you needed to be in that family meeting, but you had an engagement at work that you needed to take care of. And that's just like a fundamental part of human nature that we'll always have these trade-offs. So I'll just say like be meaningful, be thoughtful, be deliberate about like the time that you spend with your loved ones. It becomes a strength when they're there. It becomes a pleasant memory that might even give you like a head. I mean, like what do you? No, not a headwind. I mean, give you like a. I mean,
Tailwind.
push you on. Tailwind, yes. Tailwind, even when they're gone. I'm just like really thankful that when I think about my dad, that's sort of like what comes to me. And then I think there's also like the space of vulnerability. This is just like trying to think about this space that I've been in for the last month. I mean, my colleagues knew that I was unwell. They knew that I was going through grief. And I owned the grief. There was days that things were harder. There were days that things are slightly better. They knew they had permission to reach out to the ones who wanted to come to my house. Hey, drop some arrowroots because I love arrowroots. To the ones who tried to, let's say, like, reschedule my appointments or something like that. They knew they had permission to participate in that. And I can very easily see how I could have made the grief like a private affair that then would make everyone around me awkward about knocking on that door. Do I really have permission to do that? Can I say this? Can I say that? Um, and so that was, I think, like something that in hindsight was really great because it allowed people to invite themselves into my space, find themselves welcome into this space. And that ended up like being really incredible in terms of helping me get over the grief. And then finally, I would say that that vulnerability also opened up spaces for me to realize that I'm not the only one who's going through this. I don't like when my dad was unwell, and some a colleague says, you know, my mom has been unwell for so many years, and I'm like, oh goodness, I didn't even know that that's the case. And it changes you also as a person because then you become more thoughtful about how you have conversations with the people on your team, the kind of support that I mean, because it's not just like about Isaac offering the support. It's about Isaac having the leverage to create the kind of organization that can be supportive to both the people that you directly know need help, but to the people who maybe it's only their manager who knows that they need help or their colleague who knows that they need help. And I mean, I would just like to say like I've just been like so grateful that yes, having the pleasant memories, having a supportive family and friends around me, but then having this community in my colleagues who are also able to just like rally up and supporting me through this.
My final question to you, Isaac, today, for any young entrepreneur looking to make this bold move, they are considering whether they should or they should not. What would be your advice for them?
My mother tongue it's Doluo. It's a tribe found in Western Kenya. And so there's this phrase in Luo. I'll say it in Luo and then I'll just like translate it. It says chaka chaka. It's just like just get started. Yeah. I mean you can theorize, you can hypothesize, you can I don't know, just like research. I mean you can do everything, but if you don't get started, it doesn't matter. So it just like sounds so beautiful when said in Luo, like yeah, chaka chaka. So that's what I would say. Like if you're considering getting into it, just get started. There's a lot of lessons that you just can't learn until you're in it. I mean, to think about it, you can read all the books you want about swimming, talk to as many swimmers as you can, but until you get into the pool, that doesn't mean anything. But the moment you're in the pool, then those conversations become more meaningful. So if you're thinking about it, chaka chaka.
Chaka chaka. I love that. I am taking away that word personally. Chaka chaka. Yeah, thank you very much, Isaac. Real pleasure having this chat with you. I've learned a lot, and I'm sure that many people who are going to be listening to this would also learn quite a bit, in different parts of the podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me around and being gracious about like the rescheduling. And yeah, I'm delighted. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to the Diary of an African Entrepreneur. If you found the episode valuable, please feel free to subscribe, share, and leave a comment as well. And you'll be able to get this message to as many people as should be listening to it or have the opportunity to listen to it. Thank you much for listening.